that's what we're going to start today is offering an alternative to mainstream media, independent media. And the idea is to get you all familiar with the most widely used a nonlinear editing system called Premiere. It's available for both PC and Mac. More so Mac now because when Final Cut 10 came out, they changed everything, the whole entire workflow, and everybody that was used to working with this type of setup, uh, I think a lot of them went to Adobe Premiere because it would take them too long to relearn something new.
Did not know that.
So, so yeah, here we are. What I'm gonna do is use this project that's already open to get you familiar with what's what. So you see, there's two screens here, and you have what's called a sequence, formerly known as a timeline. So basically, you would drag a clip to the timeline and apply some effects. Every every video clip is most likely going to have a video thing and an audio thing, and they're paired. So you can see this right here, V1, that's video track 1, and this right here is audio track 1, A1. And depending on how many resources you have, theoretically you could have unlimited timelines, or unlimited tracks rather. And then they work in stacking modes. For those that are familiar with Photoshop, it's the same idea as layers. So now let's get familiar with what all this stuff is. You've got two screens here. One of them outputs what you have on the sequence. And I'm at my position marker on the sequence is right here, and that corresponds to what you see right here. This screen right here is basically what you have loaded from your project. And your project is where you load all your video footage, your pictures, your audio, and you just scrub through it. By scrubbing, I mean you take your mouse and you move this little anchor back and forth to get to the point where you want. And if you get to a section that you want, your starting position, you put your what do they call it? Your end point and your out point. And basically what you click to do your in point and out point are these curvy brackets. That one is for your input, end point, and this one is for your out point. And once you select your in and out, yeah, go ahead.
So just to reiterate a little bit, the lower left-hand section there, those are your raw footages, right?
Right.
And those are sections of them, like it looks like there's 8 of them or so there.
Right. These are individual clips that you record with your camera. When you record something and hit stop on the record, and then record another thing on the camera and hit stop, you're essentially creating two clips.
Oh, so that whole box there is one.
You could consider.
One tape or whatever.
Yeah, one take. You could consider that each one of these
but
clips
sections of the
are
same,
like different
same
scenes.
tape or the same digital card or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
And if you have a lot of footage from a lot of different cameras with a lot of different types of scenes, there's a way where you can organize all that in here by putting them into folders.
And the upper left screen represents just one of those sections, or does it represent the timeline in that upper left screen represent all?
This represents
No,
your
the upper left.
upper left.
Yeah.
This represents whatever clip you've loaded into here.
So it's
which is this one right here.
It represents one of the 8 or so that are there.
Exactly.
Okay. And then the one on the right represents which section that you're choosing of that clip.
It's representing what section if you already dragged it into the timeline.
Okay.
And the standard method for dragging things into the timeline, you could take a whole clip and drag it directly into the timeline, but it's better that you double click on the clip for it to appear here, set your in point and your out point, and then drag it down.
So you're dragging down the in and out point, the section in between the in and out point, not the whole thing.
Exactly. Mike Hales started out doing everything, dragging everything to the timeline, skipping this, and it would just take him forever to do a project.
Got it.
So it's a lot better with
pre-selecting what you want to work with.
Exactly.
Okay, I apologize to everyone for being late. So this question may be a bit asinine to all of you, but those are individual videos loaded from whatever media, your phone, your video, your mini camera. And out of those videos, one of those, you'll click on it, double click on it. Watching the video, you'll set an endpoint and a starting point and endpoint using those brackets, and then drag that over here, and then you'll see that on this side.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
I have a question. What
Yeah.
version is this?
This is the latest version. It's Creative Cloud, and it's legitimate because what Adobe did, you could either buy the program straight out, which is like $3,000 something. None of us could afford. But the thing that they started with Creative Cloud is you could subscribe to it, which is just $30 a month, or if you're a student, it's $20 a month. Just about anybody, even low income bracket, could afford to do that. And if you don't need it for like 3 months, you just reapply the subscription when you do plan on using it again. And the benefit of that is you always get the latest version of their software.
Okay. Another question. What's the difference between this and a bootleg of CS5? Are there a lot of changes, or is it just the layout? Because I don't recognize this layout.
You could change the layout how you want it.
Okay.
This
I didn't know
is-
if you did that or if it came like that.
It may come up different, but the main consistency is that you got your preview screen and your sequence screen, and then you got your project window, and then you got an area to load your sequences.
Yeah, the bottom is what I'm used to. The top is not.
Right. One of the other changes that they did is there is no direct method to show the waveform other than dragging this track. Like you grab this little handle right here and you drag it down.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you can see the waveform.
Okay.
Previous versions, there was a different method for doing that. And then the main improvement is with this version and with the succession of previous versions is that they support more and more graphics cards. And the reason why you would want to use a graphics card is for rendering. Rendering means being able to preview this without any skips or stops, and it also means you could finalize your project quicker than. For example, before we got our graphics card, it would take 6 to 8 hours to render a 30-minute video. Now it takes less than 20 minutes. Trying to think right now if there's anything else to familiarize yourself with. With the audio, you can see your levels right here, and you don't want to go past 0 right here. That means you're going to start peaking, and basically when you start peaking, you start distorting the audio, and it becomes less clear, which means it just goes beyond the spectrum of your speaker. And you can make all those adjustments. And I'll show you this more now, but there's a mixer right here for your sequence, and in the mixer it will list all the active tracks, and you can adjust the audio of each track that way. So without further ado, let's do some work.
Before
Yeah.
I move to the next, the sequence you got down there on the bottom right, those. I guess I'll come up and ask a point.
Sure.
It's hard, easier to point than it's trying to describe. These two, are these both video or are they both audio?
They're audio.
No, those are audio. Adobe Premiere supports different types of channels. This is stereo. That's why you see the right channel and the left channel.
Oh, so that's why it's all in this one's A1 or whatever section here.
Right. That's a stereo track. You could create a mild track, and you could also create a 5.1 track.
What's this one up here?
That's the video track
Oh,
right
okay,
there.
that's the video. All right.
Right.
Can't you still move the yellow bar in the audio to adjust the volume? Or is that not recommended? Is it better to go to the mixer?
I find it more convenient to go through the mixer if you're making a global change from that particular track, meaning that everything on audio 1 would be all affected at once by your audio adjustment. The other method which I'll show is you could actually affect the audio quality through effects and also the gain on individual clips. So what I'll do right now is I'll close out of this, and I will bring in a project that's fresh. So there's actually 2 things you need to do when you start a new project. Is you're gonna give the project a name, tell it what location to put it on your computer, and then once that loads, you're going to create a sequence. And you could have unlimited sequences in here. This one just has one sequence, which is what you see here. And you'll see one sequence at a time. If you load more than one sequence, they'll put it up here as a tab, and you can go between them. So right now I'm going to close out of Adobe Premiere, and I'm going to relaunch it. Now we're going to create a new project. Over in the left panel, it's going to list the latest projects that you created last. So new project. We're going to tell it where to put the project. We'll stay in this folder, but there's other things that we've worked on. So if we go to Global Climate Convergence, that's where we're going to put our project file. It's always a good idea to stay organized by keeping folders and your project file where all the media that you're using is at.
It becomes a mess very easily if you don't.
Yeah, then you'll never find what you need to work
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, pretty much get confused afterwards.
So I'm just waiting here to get my cursor. Okay, so I'm going to call this demo. And click OK. Some other things, if you have more than one hard drive on your computer, then you could change the scratch disk to be on another hard drive. Most likely you just have one hard drive and maybe an external one. So for the most part you don't need to worry about that unless if your main hard drive has very little space left.
Is there anything we got to worry about in the general settings?
No, if you have a render card, this is going to be picked by default. Mercury Play Engine for GPU acceleration. Basically, what that does is it uses the processor on your video card instead of your main computer processor to do the rendering. Also, if you're capturing video, like if you have an old DV camera, you know those old digital tape cameras. I think Nikki, you still have one. So just designate whether if it's DV or HDV. So we have our project open, but we don't have a sequence yet or a timeline. So we're going to have to create that. So file, new, and then create sequence. Another way to create new stuff, including sequences, is to go to your project window and right click, and new item, and then sequence. Usually with a lot of professional software, there's more than one way to do the same thing. So it brings up this dialog box, and most HD video cameras that are stored to memory cards or hard drives are going to use the AVC HD from prosumer to professional cameras. So we're going to do that. If you're going from a DV camera that's standard def, then DV NTSC is what you want to do in this country. If you want to produce something for another country that uses the PAL format on their TVs, then you'd pick something there. So for now, I'm just going to create AVC HD because that corresponds to the footage the format of the footage that we use on our camera. Give it a name. Click OK. And now we got our first sequence.
Jason, when you
Yeah.
talk about DV, you talk about these?
Yes.
two?
Exactly.
Okay, so I can't, all right, this is awesome.
So you could bring that right into Adobe Premiere. I don't have a DV camera set up on my computer right now, but if I did, I go to File and then I click on Capture,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
and then either I could capture the whole tape or I could review it and set my endpoint and outpoint of what I want to capture.
Mhm.
And then when you're ready to capture, just press this record button right here. For organization purposes, you're going to want to label the tape name and then what the clip name is. Given that you might be getting more than one clip out of one DV tape.
Yes, labels.
You have to have your camera on the right settings to capture too. You have to have it on the capture settings.
The camera itself,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
What-
While it's
When
plugged
you're
in.
uploading or while you're recording?
While you're uploading.
Yeah, while you're transferring or capturing, a lot of DV cameras, you just turn it on and plug in the FireWire cable. and it automatically detects. Other times you have to go on the settings and
Mine doesn't. You have to go in the settings.
yeah, so that's more something that you'd look in your camera manual for.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, if it's a consumer camera, you just plug in the FireWire and it just recognizes it and it knows what it's gonna do.
Excellent.
Does this little blip, or this little blip starting, represent the one file?
No, that this right here and this right here corresponds to just a sequence.
Oh, okay, that's just a marker and where it's at.
Right, and since I have nothing on the sequence, it's not moving them in parallel.
Right.
So the first thing we'll do is we will import a video file to put into our sequence. So let's see what this one is about right here. You could import more than one file in the same folder at a time, and like anything else in Windows and Explorer, even on Mac, you just basically drag your mouse and select what you want. Or if you want to select from one point to another point, is you hold down the Shift key from the starting point of what you want to put in to the end point of what you want to put in, and then release the Shift key.
If you left your camera just run for 2 or 3 hours, would that just represent itself as just one of these files?
Mostly it does. However, there is a technical issue where it doesn't do that, and the technical issue is generally not a problem. What happens is, depending on your file system of the camera, which is usually FAT32, you don't have to know what that is, other than the fact that file sizes are limited to 2 gigabytes in FAT32. You can't have a bigger file than 2 gigabytes. And most cameras will record as FAT32.
What is that, like every 30 minutes or something? Or?
It depends on how much compression you use on your camera. On our camera, right now, with its compression setting, is about 17 minutes. So every 17 minutes, it'll generate another file.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that was already rendered. Usually when you bring in a clip, it renders that, and there's a little progress bar right below here where it indicates that it's being rendered. And it's usually the audio that it's rendering if you're dealing with ABC HD files. Yeah, it'll just take a minute before you could use it. So now I'm going to double click on this clip that I just imported, and it's going to pop up right here. This right here, what I'm doing right now, right here, is called scrubbing. I'm basically going back and forth in the footage until I find what it is that I want. So let's say we want this right here. We set our in point, and then we want to stop it, say right here, after somebody was yelling. Set our out point, and then we drag it down to the timeline. So we got just the nugget that we want from that clip, drag it down to the timeline, and then we could go to either the next thing we want from the clip, or look into another clip and grab something. Now if you have a lot of clips, as I was saying about being organized before, and if they're like different things, and they most likely will be, if I click right here and I right click, I could choose to rename that file. Right here. A quicker way to rename a file is just to double click like that. But don't double click too quick. You'll kind of get a feel for it at what speed and pace you'd have to do it to get it to work right. But once you nail that little delay with the click, then it'll be a lot quicker for you to just rename stuff here. So I'm going to just call this sign. All right. So the next thing, okay, let's grab something else from here. Say we want this fracking sign right there, the radioactive one. So what I did right there, instead of clicking this button right here, there's a keyboard shortcut. I is for in point, and O is for out point. So I'm going to say that's what I want right there. I'm going to press O to do my out point. And then say I want some music in the background, but I don't want the audio from this video. There's two things right here you could drag. One of them is for dragging only the audio of that clip, or of that in and out, or just a video of that in and out. So I'm going to drag just a video. And now I'm going to overlap it on the previous clip. Move it to overlap it. And what's going to happen is you're going to see the bottom clip, and then when the top clip comes in, it's going to jump to that clip.
Is this also how you do fading in and out? If you wanted to fade out, but fade in to another?
There's several ways to fade in and out. If you want to fade from one thing to another, you can either have it overlap like this.
Fading to black, but fading into the new.
Right. There's two ways to do that. I could either fade from where this is right now, and I'd be using the same effect for each one. There's different tabs in each one of these little palettes here, and if we want to apply an effect on some footage, which includes transitions, then I click effect, and then I would scroll to it, or I would go find what it is that I want. So video transitions. For a fade, that would be under dissolve, and then cross dissolve is the most common one used. So I'm going to drag that effect and put it right on that clip. So there it is. You know it's going to apply the effect if it puts a little shadow over the area that it's going to use up for that transition. If it doesn't show that shadow, then if you release the mouse, it's not going to do anything. And it can be a little touchy sometimes, so you might have to redo it a few.
The shadow we should be seeing is that shadow inside the blue box.
The blue box is the bottom clip.
Yeah.
The gray one is the top clip. And you can see as I go through it, you can use the left and right.
So we should be looking in the gray box for the shadow.
Yeah, exactly. And there's scrubbing, which I just showed you before. And you can do it with your sequence window too. And then if you want to do fine adjustments or fine movements, frame by frame, then you can use the left arrow and right arrow key on your keyboard. Another more traditional way of doing transitions between clips. It's Control Z. Anytime you do a mistake that's something that you want to do, didn't want to do, just hit Control Z. It means undo, and most programs, including Word, Microsoft Word, has that as a shortcut key. So I'm going to drag this. Hold on, let me. If you're dealing with clips that are too small on the timeline, then what you need to do is zoom in. And that's what this bar does down here. For those that have used earlier versions of Premiere, the way of zooming in was different than it is now. Now if I want to zoom in, I make this little bar right here smaller by dragging it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
And if you want to see the whole everything on your timeline, then you drag it all the way out.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just drag it enough so we can easily get a nice grip of this thing and just move it where we want it. So I'm going to delete the transition that we added to it when we had one track on top of the other by selecting it and pressing the delete key. And then I'm going to go back to the effects and do the cross dissolve again. This time I'm going to put it where it's between both clips. That way it's going to equally transition between the two. Just like that. Now if you wanted a longer fade or a shorter fade, then what you do is you just double click on that transition. Hold on. Let's try this again. Alright. Double clicking doesn't work in this version anymore, so I guess if you just select it and then
I thought you could move it
Oh, here it
whenever
is.
that red thing is on it. Just click on it when the red thing is on it.
oh really?
That's
Oh,
what
no.
I thought. Yeah,
The-
that right there.
The red thing, as far as I know, is just for
Yeah,
making
see?
it longer or shorter.
Oh, I thought that's what you were trying to do.
Yeah, that is what I was going to try to do, although that is less precise. You're basically eyeballing it.
Okay.
If you want to be exact, then you just click on it, go to the effects tab on the top palette, and you set the duration right here. So what this duration means right here is it's 28 frames. So the first number on the right side is always the frame count. So we're using 29.97 frames per second with this footage. So basically 28 frames generally, means 1 second.
Okay, where did you get the 29 something that we were using for the footage? You just knew that?
The frame rate is depicted by the settings for your sequence. So when we created a new sequence, and I'll do one again just so you can see, ABC HD 1080p 30. That's 30 frames a second.
Okay,
So
okay, all right. Thank you.
you're welcome. So yeah, that's another way to do transitions. There's many other transitions to use, but if you don't want to go too crazy and just keep things simple, cross dissolve is the most common one to use. There's other ones where you could do like a block transition where it kind of rotates from one clip to the next. There's also tools right here for doing editing on the timeline. And the most useful tool is the razor tool. That's where the mouse cursor is right now. It looks like a little razor blade. And what that does is it allows you to cut wherever your marker is. So say I want to put a slice right here. I go over the clip that I want to slice, and I click. It's also going to chop the audio too because the audio is connected with the clip. If you just want to affect the video in the clip and not cut the audio, then what you'll need to do is unlink the audio from the video. And to do that, you right click on the audio or the video and you go to unlink right here. Now, bear in mind that even though I unlink them, both the audio and the video is still selected. So if you do something like hit the delete key and they're still both selected, you're going to delete the video and the audio at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the outside of it, and then I'm just going to click on the audio by itself, and then I'm going to hit the delete key because maybe I just want to delete the audio in that segment.
The linking keeps the sequence with the video and the audio together, right?
Exactly.
Then if you unlink them, they're still connected until which time you've pushed them around a bit, right?
Exactly. So if you unlink it and you just move the video or the audio, the other counterpart is going to stay where it was left. So let's demonstrate that right now. I just did a Control Z to bring back the last change I made, which is where I deleted the audio. And if I move the video with it being unlinked, it's not moving the audio with it. Where if it was linked and I move the video or just the audio, they move together. Now, it's always a good idea to constantly save your project as you're working on it. It's less of an issue today.
Every
Then-
5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
Seriously.
you really got to get in the habit of doing it because, especially if you're using a graphics card and you're doing some web browsing with Adobe Premiere, eventually Adobe Premiere will crash because there's going to be some conflict between Flash and the graphics card.
Yes. I know that all too well. I've lost many projects and had to start over.
So the quickest way to save your project is to hold down the Control key and press S, which is Control Save. And it's good to remember that key combination because it's so easy to get into the habit of doing that rather than having to be so lazy and going up the file menu and clicking Save. You're going to be less motivated to do that each time unless you just use the Control S to save. All right, so I'm going to take several points during this presentation to ask questions. I think now is a good time to ask if there's anything else beyond this point that you'd like to know, such as creating text, maybe creating crawling text or rolling text.
Yeah.
Slowing
Maybe
down
doing
and
effects.
speeding up.
Well, I do have one. So,
What's that?
Slowing down and speeding up the footage.
Oh yeah, slowing down and speeding up the footage. Okay. So say I want to dramatize this clip right here where I remove the audio. If I'm going to slow it down, it's going to make that segment of that clip longer on the timeline. So if you're not doing it precisely what it is you want, where you're measuring everything to a nook and cranny, I would put that on its own timeline for now, or on its own track rather. That way when it expands, it's not interfering with the other tracks, or the other footage on that track. So say I want to slow down this video right here. I right click on it, and then I click speed duration. Now there's a couple things you could do here. For example, if you wanted to slow it down but maintain the audio pitch, then you click right here, maintain audio pitch. That way, if you're speeding something up, for example, the person speaking won't sound like they are a chipmunk. Exactly. The other thing you could do, if you just want to reverse the footage to make everything go backwards,
Okay.
then you just click reverse speed.
Nice.
If you want to slow it down, then you can either change the duration of it, or you can change the percentage of it. So 50% would be half the speed. 200% would be twice the speed. So let's slow it down and make it 50%. Click OK. Now it's this long. We can move everything else in the track to meet that. I'm going to Control Z right here because there's something I need to show you that prevents you from messing up your tracks when you want to move a whole bunch at the same time.
What is Control Z?
Undo.
Okay.
Just like in a word processor, you accidentally erased the whole thing you wrote,
Right.
it just Control Z to bring it back.
Use it a lot.
So, say I want to move everything on one track without affecting things on the other tracks. I'm going to select the second tool in our little tool palette. It's a little arrow pointing to the right that has the broken lines around it. And then first I'm going to look at it. Right now, when I go over to the sequence, it shows 2 arrows. What that means is that it's going to move all the tracks at the same time. So if I do that, I can move all the tracks at the same time. If I just want to move this track right here, and everything after it, I just start there and move it. And then Control Z that just so I get my transitions back. If I just want to move one of the tracks, what I have to do is hold down the Shift key while I drag. And notice when I hit the Shift key, what happens to the other arrow? It disappears. That indicates that I'm just moving one track at a time.
If you see the double arrow, you know you're moving all the video tracks. If you hold the Shift key down, you'll only move the track where the arrow is on.
Right, and this is the case in particular with the latest version of Adobe Premiere. In earlier versions, it was just a reverse. You had to hold down the Shift key to move everything at once, and then not hold down the Shift key just to move one track.
Okay.
So, but you know for sure when you go over your sequence which one it's going to do, whether if it shows the 2 arrows or just the one. So now I'm going to move just this one track here. So now that I made room for it, I could drag this track back down to the track that it was in before. Now let's take a look at it in slow motion. Not much that you can see there, because there isn't a lot of action going on in that video, so it's hard to tell. But if I had some action footage with somebody putting a basketball in a hoop, flying off the ground, you definitely see that they're in the air a lot longer. So again, I'm going to save this.
Oh, wow, so that allows you to keep the audio at the same speed, but speeding up the track.
Well, when you do maintain pitch, it does slow down the audio, but it doesn't affect the pitch of the audio.
Yeah. Wow.
You're going to want to make sure that you don't go too crazy. Like if I set this clip to be 10% or 5% of the original speed, it's going to look worse than stop animation. Because you're going to be looking at one frame a lot longer than...
Speed up the audio, but still maintain it not to be chipmunks.
Right, exactly.
Huh. I guess I didn't understand.
We could try that on a sample clip here. Let's get some fresh new clip here. I'm gonna import another video footage here. Let's see, maybe there's somebody talking here. This looks like somebody being interviewed. Everybody knows who she is, I think.
Is that Angie?
Yeah. So I'm gonna name this Angie. That way, whenever I forget her name, I can just go back to this project and look at it. Double click on it. I'm gonna get to the position where I want to start. If you just want to play the footage in real time, whether if it's on the sequence or on the preview monitor, just press the space bar.
Can I do it when I get back? Just because I want to disassociate myself.
So, and then you hit the space bar again to stop it. So the space bar is like toggling between play and stop. So it doesn't look like there's much with that clip, so we're gonna try another one. See if we get somebody talking here. Let's try this one. So she's saying something, I think she's...
Full job on fracking are 800% greater than the odds of dying on any other job.
So I don't know what she's going to say next, but I'm going to stop right there and set my endpoint. And whatever she says after this is going to be in her project.
Yes, that's how they make profit, is by abusing workers, overworking them, and subjecting them to really dangerous conditions.
So there's a good soundbite right there. I'm going to set my out point. Now I'm going to adjust my in point because there's a lot of silence in the beginning, and maybe we just want to make this video tight. So I'm going to go to roughly where that beginning, where I set my first in point. I'm going to press spacebar to play it out. So she starts talking right there. Now I'm going to adjust it. I'm going to go back a couple frames. Maybe right about there. Generally, you want to look for a beginning point and an ending point where the facial expressions isn't too bizarre. You want it to make it look natural. So I'm going to set my in point there. Again, I've already set my out point, and I'm just going to drag this down.
Is that Jill Stein?
The ship right here.
Yeah. Yeah, she ran for president. Green Party.
I voted for her.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so let's say we just want to slow down the beginning.
Yes, profit is by abusing workers.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the razor tool because I only want to affect one part of that.
Razor
Okay.
is more precision than the normal cut tool.
Well, the eraser is going to cut exactly where you set your position on the timeline.
What's that called? The toggle? I forget. There's a funny name for it. It can.
I don't know all the names for things, so sometimes I just make up my own. Maybe it'll make its way into the Oxford Dictionary.
I think it's called the
The
toggle,
lexicon
but
of,
Can TV calls it some funny name.
All right.
I don't remember.
We call
So-
it MK speak.
So what I'm going to do is the one that I want to affect, I'm going to copy two versions of that. So if I want to replicate what I have right here selected, I hold down Control and press C. That's Control Copy, same as in a word processor. Then I'm going to set my cursor position for where I want to paste it. And you may be thinking right now, how does it know which video track to paste it to? That's simple. Right now, V1 and A1 is selected. So if I want to do a different one than that, I unselect V1, unselect A1, and go to the track that I wanted to go on. So V3. Say I wanted to be right above the ending of the previous clip. And then for the audio, let's unselect all these. Okay. If you have more than one track selected, it's going to paste it to the one nearest, I think, to the last one. But general rule of thumb, you just want one video and one audio track selected at a time if you're going to be copying and pasting copies of a clip. So Control C and Control V, there it is. I had audio track 1 selected and video track 3 selected, and that's exactly where it put each one. Now I'm going to slow down this track by 50%. I'm actually going to do both of them by 50%, but one of them is going to be maintain pitch, and the other one is not. So I'm going to make this one 50, and I'm not going to maintain the pitch on this one. This one I'm going to make it 50, and I am going to maintain pitch on it. I'm just going to drag this over just so there's no overlap. And now I'm going to play it out.
Overworking them and subjecting them to really dangerous conditions.
Overworking them and subjecting them to really dangerous conditions.
So if you publish what I just did right now, you'll probably have a lawsuit regarding, what do they call that when you,
Defaming.
not defaming, but,
defamation.
yeah, defamation of character. But we'll make sure that that doesn't leave this room. But the first clip that we slowed down, we did not maintain audio pitch, so she sounds like she's talking out of a garbage can. I don't know why I said that, it just first thing that popped in my mind. And this one sounds like a real audio pitch, but it also sounds like that she's been taking a lot of painkillers.
Like me.
Subjecting them.
So that's a speed up and that's a slow down. Let's see what happens when we speed them up. So I'm going to make this 200%, which is twice normal rate.
So you make her voice sounds normal by changing the tone. Without changing the tone, it would be like ruh, ruh.
Exactly, and now
She still sounds like slow speech, but like normal slow speech.
yeah, it's like her normal real voice, or untethered voice. So here's what it looks like when it's sped up.
Overworking them and subjecting them to really dangerous conditions.
So obviously the one where we did not maintain the audio pitch, she sounded like a chickmunk. The other one where we did maintain audio pitch, she sounded like she was on speed.
Thank you.
And if she was on speed, I would say she probably cleaned her house and with no sleep for 3 days.
Or running a presidential campaign.
Yeah, if she's being attacked from every angle and she still wants to maintain a race, then she would have to do that.
Is that her? She looks different to me.
Yeah, that's her. I didn't recognize her at first. No, that's totally Jill Stein.
So Jason, we're manipulating these individual sequences over here, eventually to link them all on the same video track to run.
Well, they're going to be.
one.
Where's my back scratcher slash
They're
pointer?
different
Here it is.
clips, but they're all gonna be merged into the
To the
same.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, what you're doing in the sequence is you're composing your video. You're composing it. What I think you're referring to is the final product.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it compiles all the tracks and all the audio and everything you have in your sequence down to just one file.
Okay. Well, we'll get there later.
Yeah, we'll get there probably soon. Again, I'm just winging this presentation. I didn't want to create any plan because that screws me up, so I just like to flow with it. Another useful tool is the picture tool. Say I want this frame right here to freeze frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the end of it. That's the end of it. When you see the black area next to it, that means you've gone one frame beyond it. So I'm going to take this frame right here, and I'm going to click on the picture button. And there's something different about this button than in previous versions. They've actually made it a lot easier in the workflow. If you want to use this clip in the project, it's going to prompt you when I click on it, import into project. In earlier versions, it would only allow you to save it, and then you'd have to manually import it into your project to start using it. This time, they just automatically give you the import option in the project. So it's going to call it test.still001. You can rename it if you want. For now, we'll just keep it that. And I'm going to drag it and put it right here. You're probably thinking, or maybe you're thinking, how does it know how long that clip is going to be? By default, it always does it, I think, for 5 seconds, 4 or 5 seconds. And you could change that default setting. It would be under Edit and Preferences. And let's see, it's been a while since I've used it. This setting right here. Maybe General. Yeah, here it is. Still image, default duration. It's 150 frames. So when we're doing with a 30 frame per second thing, that I think it comes out to close to 5 or 6 seconds. We're going to leave it at 150 frames for now. But if you do need to mess with it, you know where to go. We could also change the length of it by dragging it like this. This is the unprecise method of dragging it, or of adjusting it to make it smaller, or to make it shorter or longer in duration. I'm just going to kind of leave it where it is right now. So now when we go from here,
Using workers.
that's probably a bad frame to choose to extend. But usually this effect is good for emphasizing something. You're giving the listener time to absorb what the person just said. And there may be other uses for it beyond that. But that's generally what I'm thinking when I want to add that effect, is I'm going for allowing people the time to digest what was just said and adding emphasis to the frame. And this wouldn't be a good frame to use to add emphasis. For any reasons that you could possibly imagine when you look at that. Okay, so I familiarized yourself mostly with the basics, so you get an idea of what your workflow is going to be like. Maybe I should go into organizing your stuff. Say you're working on a big project and there's more than 10 media clips, whether they're pictures, audio, or video.
Or music.
Or music, yeah, audio. So if you have like a special effects audio, you might want to create a bind or I mean a bin, or also familiar. You can call it a folder, but it calls it a bin. So you create a bin, give it a name. Say this is going to be audio FX. So whatever FX audio that I have, I could drag into there. So I'm just going to say that this test clip right here is audio, even though it's not, just to give you an idea. I'm just going to drag it into there. So now it's in that folder. Oh yeah, the other thing that I should go into is text, and that's for like titling stuff in your videos. That's essential, especially if you're not dealing with a lot of content and you want to get a specific message across that's not said in your interviews, or if you just want to credit people, or if
logos and things like that fall in that category. Is that a different category?
What's that?
Logos and graphics and other. Is that the same category? Or is it different?
Logos is a different category.
Okay.
Basically, that's an image, so you'd be dragging in an image. And there's something to discuss about that as well, because if you're dragging in a JPEG, for example, that's the most common image format, it's not going to have transparency in it. JPEGs don't have transparencies.
Mm-hmm.
So if the logo has all white around it, and you drag it in,
you're going to have that white background.
yeah, you're going to have that all white background.
You wouldn't be able to do fade into or superimpose it on.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to superimpose it. It would just block everything that's underneath it.
Oh, okay.
So to do transparencies, I could discuss that maybe when I do a presentation on Photoshop. But the gist of it is in Photoshop, if it already has a transparency or you make it a transparency, you save it as a PNG file.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's interest later, it would only take me 5 minutes to show you that. I could show you how to create a transparency in an image in Photoshop
Please
for like the last thing.
do. I vote for that.
All right. So titles. Again, I could go to the project window right here and add new item, and title is one of them. Or I could just go do the same thing under File, New, and then create title. So there's a lot. I'm going to create a file name, or I mean a name for that title. I'm just call it intro. So there's a lot of settings and things you could change here. I'm just going to go through the main things, and I also go through creating rolling text and also creating text that scrolls across your screen. So first, we're going to create a text box. Make sure that your text tool right here is selected. Sometimes when you select something down here, it deselects that, so you have to reselect it again. The font selection that it gives you is not always the best for like professional quality stuff. They look like they got too many bells and whistles with them.
Yeah, so I was thinking, it's too busy.
And yeah, and I don't know why that is. But if you want to start with something and change it, you just select what it is you want to change, and all the properties for it is in the right panel. So more of those settings will show up once I create my text box. So for those that have used PowerPoint, it's the same way. And Photoshop, you basically drag your text box to the area that you want. I'm gonna center the text right there, and I'm gonna type in intro. Now, a thing to consider is the background is black. And that's not because you have a black background in the title alert. That's because your cursor on the timeline is not at any particular point of the footage that you have. So if I go over the footage here, you can see the footage below the title. If you want to put it on top of footage and you wanted a black background, then that setting is in this panel all the way down to the bottom. There's a lot of settings here. So background right here.
You gotta pick a font that's gonna contrast enough to be able to read it.
That's if you're gonna have the titles right above the footage, then you're gonna have to play with the color scheme and whatnot.
Or you can create a box shadow, like.
You could also create a box.
As a background or whatever.
So say you just want a black background, you just click that. But if you want a box around it, say you typed what you already want, you're going to deselect that type by pressing the selection tool and clicking on the outside. So now nothing's selected. That gives us the ability to create a box wherever we want. Now, the same with PowerPoint is it doesn't use layers, it uses objects. And there's bring object forward, bring object backward, or all the way to the back. So we're going to do a similar thing to that. And it's going to format the rectangle tool based on what settings we have for the font. So it's going to have the red halo over it if we use that. So I got my box selected. Now I'm going to create the box by dragging it out. Now with it being selected, I could go ahead and try different presets based on the font presets, just to kind of see what you got going on there. And if you got something in the preset that looks like what you want, but you want to adjust it a little bit, then you go all the settings right here. I'm not going to go into detail with all these settings. I am videotaping this, so I'll put it on YouTube.
Are you?
Yeah.
Review. So be careful what you say.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of these adjustments here, you can pretty much play with them and get a general idea of what they do. There's a lot here, so it'd take up too much time to go through each one. So I'm going to drag this and size this how I want it. Now I'm going to put it where intro is because that's where I want the text box. Now you notice I just covered it up. I didn't delete it, I just covered it up. And like I was saying before about objects, if I right click on this object, it gives me the option to go to arrange and bring to back or send to back. When I do that, it's going to be the backmost object. Now say I want to move this whole thing to the bottom, or maybe the right bottom corner. You're going to have to select both objects. So I'm going to hold down the select tool that I have, which is this tool right here. I'm going to drag it just like I'm selecting files in Explorer, and it's going to select all that, and I'm just going to drag it down. Oop, I lied. Let's try that again. Oh, it's because this text box is bigger than my select area, so I'm going to make this text box here smaller. Over here, that way I can select the whole thing. There we go. And then I'm going to drag it down to the bottom right. Now, when you're doing productions for video, for broadcast, you're going to use what's called title safe. What does title safe mean? It means that when this gets broadcasted on a television, number one, it's going to be readable, and number two, is the text going to be within the screen, because you could go outside of the screen. So that's what these two lines right here are for, is they're for title safe. Now, depending on how it's broadcasted, like with CAN TV, the lines are going to be different. And there's a way you can adjust those lines. Basically, the reason why it's different is because there's two families of broadcasts. There's the HD family, which is high definition, and there's a standard definition standard. And it's not the fact that one is lower or higher definition. The fact is that they're different ratios.
Mm-hmm.
So HD TVs are widescreen, and standard definition, it's more like a square. So specifically, SD is 4/3 ratio, and HD is 9/16. So again, if you're doing this for CAN TV, right now it's title safe set up for HD. So where you change that, and bear with me if I forget, it's been a while since I've done this. I basically just eyeball it now when I compile products, because I got a general idea of what the title safe is. Maybe it's titler. No, not that. Let's see what we got here. Maybe it's in general right here. Alright, it's not that one. It's probably under sequence. Yeah, that's what it is. Sequence and sequence settings. So basically, if you go to sequence and everything is grayed out, there's a reason for that. It's because you don't have the sequence selected. So I'm going to click on sequence, on the test sequence. Now you can tell it's selected because it's got the yellow boundaries going around it. Now if I go to sequence, it'll give me more options. So I'm going to go to sequence settings, and let's see, where is it? Yeah, 9/16 is widescreen. So when you got your HD TV, it's the ratio of the height and the length is 9/16. So basically 9 parts for every 16 parts.
Cause I'm gonna broadcast on CAN TV, so I'll have to change.
Oh, you click the format.
Mhm.
Oh, here it is. Okay, so you want to change your title safe settings. Go to File, and then Project Settings, and click on General. And there's no way to tell without actually knowing which numbers to put here, other than looking it up on Google and Googling title safe for SD standard def, or title safe for 4/3. I can never remember the numbers to use for 4/3. So what I did is I used a label maker and put those numbers and appended them to 2 of the screens here at Multiculti. So if you want to know what those numbers are, see me after the presentation, and I'll take you to that display where it has what numbers to use. Okay, so we created a title, right?
Intro.
Yeah, we created a title called Intro. Now, most people think that they have to like save it for it to stay. So this is the way you do it here is contrary to what most people would think. When you're done creating your title, you click on the X right here. And the title right here in the project window is Intro. And it's not on your sequence yet. You'd have to drag it to put it on your sequence. And again, it's going to do the same thing that the image import did with the picture, as far as its duration, which is like 5 or 6 seconds. So I'm going to drag that there. So now we got our title.
Poor
Three.
Jill, she's getting so messed with.
So right now I just overlapped it a bit, so the title comes on at the end of the link, or at the end of the clip, and it just goes into the next thing, which is right now there's nothing there, so it comes up black. Now here's the fun part. We got a title here. Say we want to move it around on the screen and have it zoom in and out. So we're going to select that clip that we want to apply the effect tool to, and we're going to go to Effect Controls. And by default, every clip has these settings to change by default. If you want an effect that's not there, then you go to your effects palette here, click the video effect that you want. Say we want to blur it. There's different types of blurs. Gaussian blur is usually the most commonly used. I'm going to drag that either to the effect control panel of where we got our
What
clip
kind of blur
selected.
did it say?
What's that?
Gaussian blur.
Yeah, Gaussian blur.
Okay.
That's the most attractive looking blur. When you're taking photos and you're using a certain depth of field, the blurry area is usually referred to bokeh, which is a Japanese word that means blurriness.
Will they hide the bags under my eyes?
You could do selected areas, yeah. What you would do to do that is, which is the same method you would do to block out obscene things that shouldn't be on TV with like a little box,
Oh,
or you blur that area out.
are anonymous and you just want to blur their face?
Yeah. The easiest way to do that is you create, you copy the video of one track and put that same copy on top of it. Then you use the crop tool just on the top clip to just crop down to the area that you want to blur. And then you just blur that top track while keeping the track below it untouched.
Faces, license plates, private parts, whatever.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Nice.
So we want to move this around. This will be our first cool effect that we're going to do. So moving around and zooming, that's all under motion. And what we could do is affect the size and the position of it globally for now. Then I'll show you how to do it throughout. So I'm going to make this bigger. And then I'm going to change his XY position. So let's see. Bringing it up with the Y position. I'm going to bring it over with the X position. Okay. And that affects the whole clip globally. So anywhere I scroll through that timeline, either I scroll at the sequence level or I scroll at the effects level. And just like there's a zoom on the sequence, there's also a zoom on the effects area. So if you really want to do some fine-tuning effects, you would zoom in. And you're probably thinking, what do you mean by fine-tune effects? What are we doing here? Well, we're going to start setting anchor points. So say, from this position, I want it to be 179% scaled. And from this position, I want it to gradually go to a smaller size, like right there.
Like ascending or descending.
Exactly. So if I play it out, it's going to go from big to small, just like that. And that's, with these anchor points, that works with whatever effect that you could drag into this area. You could do different anchor points there. Also, if you want to change an anchor point, you want to make sure that you're exactly on it. And how you identify that you're on it is when this middle thing right here gets selected. because outside of it, it's not selected. Inside of it, it is selected. Outside of it, it's not selected. I made a mistake before of setting too many anchor points, thinking that I'm adjusting one where I'm creating too many of others. It could be a nightmare when that happens. So luckily, when you can tell when it's actually selected. And it becomes more of a difficulty when you're not zoomed all the way in. If you're zoomed all the way in, then it's easy to, because you're going frame by frame and you're looking at the frames and you can see a significant change in position with the cursor. Now, if I wanted to change size more gradually with just these two anchor points, I'm going to zoom out on that, and I'm going to click this anchor point, and I'm going to move it further down. That way, the change of size is going to be more gradual. Whatever. Wrong key. Okay, select this. Press the space bar to start, and you can see it's more gradual now. Now, another thing that you could do with anchor points is you could copy and paste them. So you could select this anchor point, for example, and say I want to copy that to this position right here. I do Control C, and then everybody mostly knows that to paste something it's Control V. You're probably wondering why it's not Control P. Well, printers are to blame for that. Control P is the print.
I was wondering what that was.
So the reason we want to copy the anchor point to another area is to keep it at its current position for duration, and then after the second anchor point that we copied, do something else. So now we're going to change. Another thing to be
an end anchor point for one, and it will also be the beginning anchor point for another.
right. You're basically setting an in point and an out point to stay the same before you go ahead and do something else. And also, if you're going to be doing other settings other than the size, you're also going to want to set your markers for the positions or the other effects as well while you're doing the other ones. Otherwise, if I change the position here, since I haven't done any anchor points for positions, it's going to change the position globally through the whole duration. So that's why you want to say go right here and set your anchor point for position. And again, when you set an anchor point, you do it by clicking this button for the first anchor point. So I'm going to do that right there. And any future anchor points is going to be this button right here. Add remove keyframe. Now the only time it's going to remove a keyframe when I click here is if I'm actually directly on the position of that anchor point. So you can see right now that I've got that anchor point selected by the little white dot. And if I click the anchor point right here, it's going to delete it. Basically, it's just going to toggle delete, undelete as you click it. But if you go into an area that's not in a position, it's just going to create a new anchor point. So I'm going to set that anchor point here and there. And then now, after that, I'm going to gradually change its position. So now it's going to go across the screen and it's go toward the bottom. But it's going to do it not like this, but it's going to do it like this. If we wanted to do it like this, then we would have to change the anchor points for the y-axis and the x-axis independently. So let's take a look at the whole little motion effect here. It zooms out, stays there, and then goes to the bottom right. So that's the gist of setting anchor points and vectorizing motion. There's also velocity setting too, like how gradually do you want it to speed up or slow down in that motion. I've never used that. It's there, you can play with it. I haven't had a need for it. I'm not doing music videos for Apple, so I think I'll leave that out. Also under motion, you have other things you get set anchor points for, such as rotation, Also, if we want to set it to blur when it gets really big, I don't know why we'd want to do that, but just for the heck of it. Let's see, it gets really big right here. Let's see, if we set our blurriness point right there, go into it a little bit, and then increase the blurriness by some obscene number. Okay. So let's play that out. And say we want it to come back. We want to be able to read it again. So we go over here. This is the position where we want to keep it blurred. And then we're going to create another anchor point from where it becomes clear again. So I'm going to change this 300 number to 0. 0 is clarity for this setting. There it is. So now it moves, gets blurry, and then it becomes clear again. And then it drops back down. So that's the basic gist of effects. Now, I think we're at a point right now. There's other things you can do. You can adjust audio quality. If you have noisy audio, a good effect to use for audio is low pass and high pass. What low pass does is it allows a certain amount of the low range to go through, and the high pass allows a certain of the high range of the audio to go through. And what I mean by range is, say if you have like a low frequency hum, you'd want to use the high pass because you want to let the high frequencies pass through while cropping out the low frequencies. And those settings are under the effects palette, audio effects, and if you're not familiar with where things are at in this organization that it has here, but you know what it's called, you can just type it in the search thing right here and it'll bring it out. So here's high pass. So you can drag high pass to here. You got audio there. Say we need to clean it up a little bit. By default, it doesn't change any of the audio. What it simply does for this clip when you have it selected is it puts it in your effects palette. And here's high pass. No, hold on. Here's high pass. Oh, where did I go through? All right, I must have clicked something. Here's high pass. Okay. So what frequency do you want it to cut off at on the low end? This is what this is right here. So, all right, this is why you have to constantly save things while you're going through this. I actually never got this ear before. This is brand new, but I've gotten other ones too, and I just started taking screenshots of them just so I could create a collection of them. So it's gonna close.
Yeah.
Wow. You guys weren't kidding.
And I think I haven't saved in a while.
Yeah, no, you hadn't.
Been to generation-x.net.
No.
All the people that got banned from Vimeo and YouTube for having controversial material,
Oh, that's your fun.
go to his site. Yeah,
Generation-X.
yeah .net, not .com, .net. And there's a lot of good material on there that would otherwise get censored anywhere else. That's the other thing that I actually get into is, and I touched on it, but didn't really go into it yet, is the audio mixer for each track.
What's the magnet tool?
Oh, this right here? Oh, that's the snap. So, for example, if I'm moving this and I wanted to go exactly on top of where this one ends, it snaps to it.
Okay.
Or if I had it off, it would be more arbitrary. It wouldn't snap anywhere.
Nice.
It's a very good tool for being precise without being precise.
Yeah, well, Jason, how do you actually get like different music clips for the other video clips? I mean, how you implement them?
You mean where I get the source of audio music from?
Mm-hmm.
Lately, I've been using two sources. One of them is the Ghost album of 9 Inch Nails. There's like 40 tracks, and that's Creative Commons. And then the other one is this guy Jason Shaw at audionautics.com. You go to that website, you can choose the type of mood that you want, and then they'll list all the songs that he created that goes with that mood.
Torture.
That would be
Can you choose that area?
Yeah, right.
yeah.
And then all that's Creative Commons too.
Yeah.
Wait a
yeah,
minute, what are you saying?
yes.
Audio what?
For music, where I get my music from when I put it in a video.
Okay, what was the name of those places?
9 Inch Nails, the
Uh-huh.
Ghost album,
Ghost album.
that was released in 2008 as Creative Commons.
Creative Commons.
Yeah, that's like copyleft instead of copyright.
Okay.
Where you could use it for non-commercial purposes as long as you
Credit
attribute
them?
the author.
Uh-huh. And you're saying Creative Commons, not creator.
No, Creative Commons is it's an alternative licensing than copyright.
Creative. That's
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah, Creative Commons.
Okay. 9 Inch Nails, Ghost.
Yeah, just called Ghost.
Okay.
You could download that.
And
You
then
could-
the other
it's
one.
even on archive.org, the Ghost album.
Okay. And then what was the other place? This guy Jason what?
Jason Shaw,
Uh-huh.
SHAW.
Uh-huh.
You can just Google his name and you'll get it in the Google. But if you want to go directly to the website, it's audio.
Uh-huh.
And then Nautix is Nautix.
Oh, I asked.
Party can start.
All right.
Woohoo! Where's the drinks?
Time to party. Let's
No
see if I could.
narcissism here, huh?
I was brainstorming the things that I forgot to show you guys that are important. And one of the things, let me get the camera rolling. Oh, the camera is rolling. Okay. I must have turned it on 5 minutes ago and I forgot to do that. So the next important thing is the audio mixer. Say this is your music track and you have it on, hold on, let me zoom in so I can really anchor this thing. Say I'm using audio track 1 for all my music, and track 2 is the audio from the footage. And for example, the music may be drowning out the speaker, meaning the person that you're getting the talking from. So what you want to do is for audio track 1, go to your audio mixer, and it will show you each track independently with an adjustment for each one, for however many audio tracks you have. Right now we just have 3, so it's only going to show me settings for 3. So we have audio 1 selected. You can adjust that volume independent from the other tracks to some level that is ideal depending on what you have. So I can adjust it while it's playing it. Since that's a very small clip, it doesn't give me enough time to make it noticeable the adjustment. So that's loud, and then I can bring it down to low.
Yes, that's how they make profit is by abusing workers.
Do that with the other track too, just as I did. So you set your levels that way for the tracks. You could also do audio adjustment to the clips independently, whether or not they're on a particular audio track. So say I figure that this one right here needs to be a little bit more quiet. I can right click on it and then click on audio gain, and I get adjusted here. Say for example, your camera, you had your audio record setting too low, and that amount of lowness is consistent throughout the entire clip. You can do something called normalize max peak. So it's going to look at the loudest thing on there and maximize that while maximizing everything else equally. This is a problem when everything is low and then there's a one big huge loud sound. Normalized max peak is not going to work in that situation. You can either do it manually by taking out that loud sound or minimizing it by selecting just that area of the audio to lower. Basically using a razor tool to cut that area out or to change that one area. Or you could do an audio effect called compression, and that will increase everything up without increasing the high peaks. It would just increase the low peaks.
Is it filtering, or is that what we're talking about? Filtering.
Compression is kind of like filtering. It's like a normalize on steroids. So I'm just going to normalize this clip. And then when it gets normalized, you can go back to audio again and see what it normalized it to. It actually brought it down negative 1.5 decibels because it figured it was too loud. And to normalize it, it brought it down a little bit. So we did the audio mixer, we did the manual adjustment of audio. If you're doing voiceover work, you want to create a track just for the voiceover, and most microphones are mono, so you're going to want to create a mono track. And this is something I haven't introduced to you guys yet, how to add tracks. But basically, you just right-click anywhere in this track area. Hold on, let me see. Maybe this area? Yeah, okay. This top open area, you right-click on it, and you get the option to add tracks. So we want to add an audio track, and we want that audio track to be mono. Most microphones are mono. So click OK on that. We're going to put 0 for our video track because we don't need any more video tracks right now. And click OK. So now we don't see the mono track here because there's a lot of these tracks that we're not using, especially the 5.1 tracks. Most professional cameras just record stereo. I think 5.1 is just a consumer grade stereo type of feature. Unless if you're making movies that utilize 5.1, otherwise it's not really a benefit to use it. So to delete unused tracks, I'm going to go to delete tracks, and I'm going to select delete all empty tracks. So it's only going to delete the tracks that don't have content on them. I click OK. It's still left the 5.1 tracks. Let's try this again. Oh yeah, here, delete. I guess in this version they separated video and audio tracks separately, so now I'm going to delete all empty audio tracks. There we go. It also deleted my mono track, the one that I just created, only because I didn't have content on it, so I'm going to have to re-add that. Put 0 for video, 1 for audio, and make it mono. There's your mono track. So this is the one we're going to be using for doing a voiceover. So now I'm going to select that track. I'm going to go over in the audio mixer. Let's see. Okay, missing something here. Mixer. Yeah, they did change this. I had this problem before, and I had to go online to look at the reason, but typically in the mixer you're going to have on the track that you select a little record icon. You would click on that record icon to cue it up, and then there's going to be a play button. You hit the play button, and then that's when it's going to start recording your voice or whatever's going through your microphone onto that track. I apologize that I can't demonstrate that right now, because it was easier in earlier versions of Adobe Premiere. This is a new thing. If anybody's familiar with this, you could definitely let me know if you got an idea of how to get those record and play buttons on each audio mixer track. But if not, we'll just move on. Just know that it's
Add that
possible, and you
segment
could
later.
Google it or YouTube it.
You can add that segment later when we figure it out.
Yeah, I'll add that segment later. Okay, so we created our voiceover, we got the audio the way that we want it. Now we want to get it out to the world. So how do we do that? We take all this information on this sequence and save it just so it crashes again. And we're going to export it. Now, something to be aware of is if you see a lot of gray area for things that you need to do, it's because that area is not selected. Basically, we want to export the sequence. So right now the audio mixer is selected. There's nothing, it doesn't make any sense to export the audio mixer to some format. We're going to want to select our sequence right here, our test sequence. Then we go to File, Export, and you're going to choose Media. There's presets here. It gets complicated when I start talking about codecs, which is basically an algorithm for compression for different video formats. Rather than going into that, I'm going to suggest to go into where you want to upload it to. Most people are going to upload to YouTube, so you're going to find a preset that has YouTube in it. And again, there's different formats like HD. There's a 720 HP, which is lower res. There's these different things that you get exported to for like the Android phone, iPhone, all that craziness. So whatever your target is, you pick something that comes close to that preset. If you know more about codecs and compression and stuff, then you could do your own customized preset. So say we got a very slow internet connection and HD is not really a thing that we need to worry about for the video footage. So you could pick HD widescreen. Maybe have the frame rate the same as our timeline, which is 29.97 or 30 for short. I don't know who came up with 29.97. It's crazy. I think it had to do with the old videotape days when things were not as I don't know. But yeah, we have a preset here for YouTube. There's a format to select. I recommend H.264 before you pick your preset. That's basically what Blu-ray uses. H.264 is a codec, and it's the most common for a codec, and you can edit with it natively in most video editors, including Adobe Premiere. And its quality versus compression ratio is excellent. You can make the files really small without sacrificing a lot of quality. So you can ignore all this stuff here unless if you want to delve and know a lot about or learn a lot about codecs. So yeah, most of the stuff here you don't really have to mess with. You want to make sure that you're exporting the video and the audio. It won't do that as two separate files. It'll do it as one file, so you don't have to worry about that. If you've rendered your timeline, and I didn't show you that, but for example, if you're working on your project and there's a certain area that you want to see what the effect is, say this area, you can set your in point and out point on the actual sequence too, and you just want to affect this area or render that area. When you have your in and out selected on the sequence, you just click on render in and out, and it'll just render that one area. And the reason I'm bringing that up now, not only to make it faster during your editing, and to actually see your effects in real time, but also it creates a preview file when you do that. And there's an option when you export it as a video to include the preview files. It's not always recommended though. I had an issue where I exported something using the preview files, and there was a green screen setup where I had an actor in front of a green screen and replaced the green screen with something else like a Cosmos motion, and half her body was chopped off. And that was because of the preview. So it's if it works for you consistently, it's going to save you time. But if you are exporting something and you don't have time to mess around with it, and you want to make sure it comes out right the first time, then you're going to want to export it. There's two methods to do the rendering into the one file. And when you're exporting it, that's essentially rendering it. You're taking all the stuff that you have on your timeline and making it one file. The process to make that happen is called rendering. If you set your in point and out point on your timeline, it's going to respectively choose that by default when you export. If you remember, when I exit out of there, out of this dialog for a moment to show you the in point and out point on the timeline to render a specific area, it carried that information over to the export. So if we want the whole thing, we want to drag this tilde here and this tilde all the way to the end to actually render the entire timeline. There's two ways to render, and the only difference between the two is there's an option to render in the queue, and what that allows you to do is to work on another video project while it's rendering. So basically, takes that project that you want to render to a second program called Media Encoder, and while it's doing that, you can go back and start another project in Adobe Premiere. If you just wanted to render it straight out from within Adobe Premiere without using a Media Encoder, then you click on Export. Both will take about the same amount of time. It's just one is like doing batch render and the other one is just doing one render. And if you're doing one render using the export tool, you can't do anything with Adobe Premiere while it's rendering. We're going to queue it up. Take it to Media Encoder. So now it's going to bring that up. Sometimes it crashes, so don't be surprised if that happens. We'll just
Did you save it?
Yeah. So there it is. This is not going to happen on all computers. Basically, the reason why this is happening on this computer has to do with the shitty software for the video card. And this is an exception to the insanity rule. If you do the same thing twice, different things will happen.
Is there anything you can do about that? About just make sure your drivers are updated, basically?
Yeah, it's updated. I did another update and fixed the problem. So we're going to go to Export under File menu. First, we got to have the sequence selected. Okay, so that option pops up. Media. Okay. Test video. Oh yeah, the other thing is the thing about Windows, and this is a Windows problem, not a Premiere problem. Basically, if you're going between different programs and different locations on your computer, it's not all going to default to the location that you're working on. So every time you're going to choose to save something or grab something from somewhere on your computer, you're going to have to tell it where you want to put it. For example, it's defaulting to another directory that I used earlier today, not the one that I'm working in. So you want to navigate and keep everything in the same place. Again, this is a whole thing about keeping everything organized, so you know where to go to get it. So we were working on global climate change, so we're going to save that exported file here so we could easily know where it is and find it when we're done with it. And I'm going to queue it up again. So it's whole thing, okay, 16 seconds. All right, this time it's going to work. It always works the second time. Knock on wood, exactly. All right, it says it's not responding. Okay, now it's creating queue items from project. Don't freak out if it says not responding. It's doing something in the background and it's just not ready for your input yet. Okay, so the reason why it's listing a bunch of stuff is because I've already rendered things before doing this project. You can see that the past things are grayed out, so it's not going to do anything with that. It's just showing the history of, things that were already done. And the only thing that's not grayed out is the thing that we just added, test. Okay. And when we're ready to render, we just press the play button right here. That's going to start to render. I'll give you a little preview of it as well. So there it is, as it's going along in the bottom left. And then because we have a super duper graphics card, not by today's standards, but by 10 years ago standards, it was a pretty badass graphics card. That it'll get this done pretty quickly.
It's still 12 times faster than the old one.
Yeah, it's 12 times faster than not having a render card. And it's going to use that graphics card if it says Mercury Playback Engine right here. The first time they implemented render cards, I think that was CS4, or maybe CS3. It only supported NVIDIA graphics cards, and only certain ones. Since the different various versions, they've added more compatible video cards to that list. If you have a video render card that's not in that list, there are hacks to make it work. If you feel savvy enough, just go on YouTube, and there's plenty of tutorials on how to make a non-supported graphics card to render your stuff. Alright, done rendering. It's in the, it should be in the folder that I told it to be. So I'm going to go to that folder. Okay, so let's see, yeah, it's in here. I'm going to sort this by date modified, so the most recent thing I changed appears in the top. And there it is, test. It's one file. It plays in just about any media player that you might use. I'd be surprised if it works on Microsoft Media Player, and it does. But if you have a lot of different video formats, and you already export it in a video format that doesn't work in Microsoft Media Player, the most common one that people use is VLC, also called Video LAN. Okay, so we exported our first project. It's ready to be uploaded to YouTube if it's something that you want to upload. And the next thing I could go into right now is the Photoshop question that Gwen had about transparencies. So I'm going to launch Photoshop. All right, I'm going to open up an image that does not have a transparency, but it has a white or some flat color background. Not sure where I'm going to find that picture right now, but I should find one pretty quickly. I'm going to go to pictures. All right, so what do we have here? We have some black and white photos. Let's see, what's this? This looks like some ancient rock with ancient writing on it. Oh no, it's not. Okay. I don't know how this got here, but we're going to use it anyways. So you notice that there's a black drawing on a white background. Mm-hmm. So this is a flat image. It's a JPEG. It doesn't have transparency. And when you open up an image that's flat, it's going to have the background and it's going to have a lock next to it. What the lock means is that you can't delete that layer if you don't already have other layers. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on it and duplicate layer. And then we click OK. It's going to give it the same name it was before, except with the copy next to it. Now that we have another layer, we can finally delete this background layer. So I'm going to drag it down to the waste bin. So now we've got a layer that could be made into a transparency. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the magic wand tool, the select tool right here. And we're going to remove continuous, or contiguous. Basically what contiguous does is it only selects areas that are localized, which means that if you have an object on there, and it has a white in the middle of it, it's not gonna get rid of that white. So we're gonna turn off contiguous, which means it's gonna do all the white in the image, and we're gonna click anywhere in the white area to select all those white areas. Now, some of these areas are not picked because they're not perfectly white, but say we want to get rid of those. So instead of hitting the delete key now, with what we have, we could go to another function, because right now when I hit delete, it's got the transparency there. That's what those little blocks are, the gray and white blocks. That's telling you that it's invisible underneath it. We're going to undo that and say we want to be more accurate about our selection. We're going to go to our select menu right here, and we're going to go to color range. This is especially useful if you have like a colored background but it has some gradient in it. So we're color range, and we're going to use our picker, eyedrop picker. By default, it selects this eyedrop picker, which means it's the one and only. If you want to click on multiple areas, then you use the one with the plus sign under it. Since we're only dealing with white, we only need to click it once. So we're going to select an area, and it's showing us the area that's not selected as in black, and we're going to adjust the fuzziness to maximize our selection to how much white. So this right here looks pretty good at 144. It might be something that you might want to play with, like you do selection, you hit delete, and you want to Control Z to undo it, and try another number. And with that selected, I'm going to hit the delete key. Now it's transparent. Once we make it transparent, do not save it as a JPEG. A JPEG will make what you just deleted flat and white again. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to go to Save As, and we're going to choose from the format in the dialog box PNG. I'm looking for it. There it is, right there. That was right above it. So we're going to click PNG, and we're going to save it.
What does PNG stand for?
I don't remember. Something. I don't remember. Post something. Yeah, I don't remember. Now, say you have a gradient transparency. Basically, what a gradient transparency is that it goes from solid to completely transparent, and there's different shades of transparent in between. If you're dealing with an image like that, you're going to go to, instead of saving it as a PNG, you're going to go to Save for Web and Devices. And there's two types of PNG. There's the 8-bit version, and there's a 24-bit version. So you got PNG 8, and you got PNG 24. PNG 24 is the one you want if you want gradient transparencies. So you're going to select that as a format, make sure transparency is selected, and you're going to save it. Okay, so now you got your transparencies, you want to bring them into your project on the video in Adobe Premiere. So I'm going to minimize Photoshop. I'm going to go back to Premiere. And like importing anything else, you're just going to go ahead and import in your project palette that PNG that we just created. Of course, you want to make sure you put everything in the same place. I did not do that, so it actually saved it in my pictures folder. Okay, I'm going to select the PNG. By default, Windows does not show you file extensions. It's and basically what a file extension is it's like .png or .jpg, which are very important indicators to tell you which one you're going to use if they all look the same. You get turn on in Windows to show extensions, but if you don't want to do that or you don't know how, you can just hover over the image and it'll tell you what it is. It'll tell you if it's a PNG image or not, or a JPEG or something else. So I'm going to select this, import it. So now it's my project I want to put in the video. Well, and I just drag it into the video. Now, in our preview monitor, the transparency shows up as black. That's fine. Just when you drag it over something, it's not going to have that. So there's our transparency right there. It's a small image compared to the HD footage that we're using. So if you want to show that up better, you can just enlarge it and position it using the motion tools under the effects. So there it is, real big. Looks like a bunch of bees flying around. But you get the general idea. So that, when you're doing like a title, or if you're doing like logos and stuff, and you're going to need the transparency feature.
That didn't start off as a transparency, but all that messing was creating the video.
Exactly. You duplicate the locked layer, background image. You delete the background image, and then you select it one way or another, all the white or whatever color it is that you want to get rid of.
You'd be able to do this to a logo if you need to.
Yeah. So, any questions, or is there anything that you're dying to learn how to do in Adobe Premiere, that is? There's one thing I forgot to show you guys that I told you I was going to show you with titles. You know how in the end of your movie, your favorite movie, you see all the text that's scrolling?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the credits.
The rolling credits.
Yeah, the rolling credits, yeah. So that's also in titles too. So we're going to create a new title to do our rolling credits. Okay, give it a name, whatever it wants it. So rolling credits and also scrolling credits is all contained in this button right here, roll, crawl options. So we're going to want to create a text box first so it knows what it's doing it to. So we create a text box, put some type in here. All right, now we're going to select the rolling credits scroll options right here, and we're going to roll. And we're going to start off screen, and we're going to end off screen. That way it just doesn't abruptly appear. You want to have it black first before you start seeing the credits come up from the top. Then I click OK. And then now what this did is it allowed me to create the text box, make the text box longer than the screen. So I'm dragging this text box down, and I could scroll down and start putting all my credits in there. And then when I get toward the end and I get more credits to add, I drag it down even more, the text box. So I'm just going to put a bunch of monkey business here. Or if you like Google, it'll be the pigeon method. And I'm going to make the background of it black, just in case I have it over video footage. So, and I'm going to center it. Most credits are center justified. So, and then once we create that title, we click the X. It automatically saves everything you do, so there's no save button, which gets confusing to new people. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just going to drag that to the end of my video. And say it's really short, the credits are going to go by really fast. So if you want to credit slower, just drag it out a little longer, and then the credits will be slower. So this is what the credits look like. And if you want to do a marquee thing, basically it's the same thing, only you're doing it horizontal. So if I want this to be a crawl to the left or to the right, then I would pick one of these options. Whether if I wanted to come through the left or come through the right. Basically, you choose an option based on the way people read in your language. So if all you knew is Hebrew, you would pick the other option. And I think there's some other languages out there that are also the other way. So I think I covered a